A man was said to have been struggling terribly after being jailed for murdering his estranged wife and just couldn't live without her. An inquest. Paul Martin Jordan was previously found guilty of killing Elizabeth Jordan and was ordered to serve a minimum of 14 years before being eligible for parole. Earlier this week, an inquest into the 54-year-old's death began after he was found dead in his cell at Hump Altcourse on July 6, 2018, reported the Liverpool. On February 24 at Gerard Majella Courthouse in Liverpool, Assistant Coroner David Lewis heard from witness Stuart Sumnall, who was a former inmate and friend of Jordan in the months leading up to his death. Mr. Sumnall first met Jordan on the Foynavon Red Wing, a unit for enhanced prisoners for good behavior. Paul Martin Jordan was found guilty of murdering Elizabeth Jordan, image, unknown. The hearing heard how Jordan was a joker and always had something nice or funny to say. But as their friendship grew, Mr. Sumnall said Jordan would regularly talk about his daughter, son and wife and how bad he feels and what it's done to the. He added Jordan would sometimes break down. At the start of their friendship, Mr. Sumnall said he had reason to believe Jordan had attempted self-harm and told the prison officers about those concerns. The hearing heard how Jordan would regularly spend time at the healthcare unit and would be on and off ACCT support. ACCT is the assessment, care in custody and teamwork process whereby a prisoner is placed on if a member of staff have reason to believe they are in crisis. Mr. Sumnall said Jordan was on and off these ACCTs, adding that he just couldn't live with himself and what had done to his family. In the weeks prior to his death, the hearing heard how the 54-year-old became unkempt and said he didn't want to live without his wife. Jordan was said to be unable to live with himself, image, North Wales Police. Mr. Sumnall told the court, "I should have noticed the signs, I blame myself." The former inmate went on to say the night of the death there was skeleton staff and the regular checks were not done as they would have seen Paul. Coroner David Lewis confirmed the checks on prisoners had not been done during the early hours of that morning, as heard earlier this week. Night shifts see less staff, but regular checks on prisoners should still be made at certain times throughout. The hearing heard how his crime was tearing him apart, but Mr. Sumnall was unaware if his friend had seen a counselor as it was hard to see the people you want to see. Mr. Scott Mathewson, who was representing the prison at the inquest, told Mr. Sumnall that the night before there was no suggestion Jordan was in crisis. However, Mr. Sumnall said more could have been done. Inmate and close friend Jason Cooper, who is now a prisoner at Hump Berwyn, said he first met Mr. Jordan before his trial in 2017. He said he was struggling terribly by what he'd done and became withdrawn and depressed when he was found guilty of murder, believing he would be found guilty of manslaughter. The hearing heard Jordan found it difficult adapting to life in prison and didn't know how to live in that environment. Cooper went on to say it had knocked the life out of him, and the way he was as a man seemed to shrink. Most read, Vladimir Putin plans to dominate Europe with chilling warning to Finland and Sweden. Russia suffering heavy casualties in Ukraine but troops 19 miles from Kiev's center. UK weather. Met Office lift snow warnings as temperature to plummet to -8°C. Jordan was said to have stopped caring about his appearance, and was a man who looked like he'd given up, comparing himself to Hannibal Lecter. Despite requests to seek support for his mental health in the weeks before his death, the hearing heard how there was only one counselor available in an emergency, due to staff absence. Cooper added in the 2 weeks prior to his death, Jordan was very erratic, and would come out with very strange things, such as not being here for Christmas. Prison outreach worker, Paul Brown, said Jordan was remorseful and very emotional, after murdering the woman he absolutely loved and adored. The hearing heard he believed he'd be looked at as a horrible, evil person after his sentence. The inquest will continue on February 25. Read more. Trainee, 21, took his own life minutes after being fired from high-flying job over Zoom. Read more. Mom of girl, 4, with Down syndrome slams terrifying end of COVID isolation rules.